So we last left off where the Voting Rights Act gets passed in 1965. And so in 1965, the Voting Rights Act gets passed to, the attempt is to end race-based discrimination for voting. And so why did I include this? Is because, once again, it establishes a timeline of legal, almost like personhood for African Americans in the United States of America. And so the next little clip that I was going to put was this documentary that I found where a women's movement was enacted in order to end discrimination for airline stewardesses. Okay, they talked about the sexism in the airline stewardesses industry. We now know as flight attendants, but yes. And so why did that matter? Is because they consistently saw that Black women were not getting hired in order to become flight attendants. And it was said, like, in passing, like, they are not going to push through the other students if they're Black. And it was like this understood, like, I forget the word or the phrase to describe it, but it's like this unspoken rule that if you were Black and you were applying to be a flight attendant, you weren't going to get hired. And I don't remember her name, but I will put a clip of the video from the documentary. And so that happened in roughly like between, I think, the movement around the 60s, okay? Why was that important? Because Black women have always been employed in the United States of America, but the degree in which the job that they were working at has changed throughout history. And so entering a workforce where it's like side by side with white women, assimilation comes into play. Because if you talk about hair, one of the things that people say is like, oh, well, Black women are appropriating hair because they straighten it or because they wear wigs. Appropriation and assimilation are two different things. If I am going to be barred from working to feed myself because of the capitalistic framework, how am I supposed to live? Dependency on others? Dependency in a relationship? I think not. So being able to make one's own money may have to have a person assimilate. And straightening hair, feeling presentable, being presentable in society, debate with that amongst yourself as you will, please research. And so having the clip for the stewardesses was helpful to once again establish a timeline. And you then also see in the 60s, the natural hair movement for, you know, having an afro and just wearing your natural hair. But what is that also tied to? A political movement in around the time of the 60s to the 80s. And so even just wearing your hair natural is not neutral, depending on who views it. And that is why it is important to understand the timeline. You have slavery, you have segregation, you have voting restrictions, and then you have, you know, entering the workforce, assimilating to be viewed as equal or just, you know, see me, and you're trying to put in little safeguards so they don't have anything to say. Then there's a movement of empowerment. But even then, that is then seen as political, and then you are othered. Okay, cool. We're all caught up. So for me, why did I do these videos? Why am I creating this? Is because failure to understand history causes us to repeat it. And in the worst ways. Having discourse almost on TikTok, talking about what's the end goal in a joking manner and, you know, loving yourself. And then somebody saying the goal should be for you to be natural and like that's it. Like we're all just to be natural, never to alter your hair ever again. And in the one video for the girl who looks like she's in college, talking about like how other races don't police their women with their hair, at least not ones that I've seen, you know, can bleach their hair to maintain that specific blonde or straighten it to appear that it's naturally straight, all those things. And she just goes to the grocery store, she goes to Pilates, she goes to be a librarian, and no one cares, no one bats an eye. But a Black woman wearing a wig is then met with, well, you're gonna go natural, right? And I have definitely loved like my friends when they change up their hair and when they've tried new styles. And, I may have recommended, a girl try a curly hair routine, but at the end of the day, that's her hair. There is no end goal. It's if she wants to, if they want to. So I hope you learned something. And if anything, I hope you encourage yourself to research more about literally any topic. I mean, it could be how to make vegan cheese for all that matters. But there's so much information that is connected in ways that, I mean, if you don't go down the rabbit hole, you won't find it. If you have any questions and I'm able to answer them, I definitely will. If you have any recommendations for me for further education on this topic or things that you feel are connected, I'd love to hear them. If you're not going to show up in the conversation as a productive member, keep scrolling. Well, have a good day. And I am going to put the screenshots of what I found. Oh, one of the things that I almost forgot, because a lot of like black women will wear the hair in locks, right? And I've often seen the debate of like, oh, well, locks are hardcore. It's a black hairstyle. No one else can wear them. Time and time again, when I've done my research, it appears as though in 1500s, it can be associated with a religious practice for Hinduism and originated in India. Another thing that I saw was almost like a cave painting, kind of like a stone painting, where it had shown the people depicted that their hair was in long locks, right? And it was actually, the oldest depiction was in Greece. So that was also interesting to learn. Now, you could debate that those long locks were poorly drawn braids. No, maybe. Or they were locks. I will include that screenshot. So there's that, because, it'd be like, oh, why don't you just wear your hair natural? And, locks are an option. And the idea of only black people can wear locks, which for me, my stance on that is, if you do lock your hair, understand the limitations of your hair. And if your hair accepts it, cool beans cool. And if your hair looks how it does, your hair looks how it does. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do with your hair, but I would research what practices would best serve your hair. Well, that's that, unless I end this video with another, post script note. All right, well, stay tuned for the screenshots and the video for the stewardesses. Have a wonderful day. Happy learning.
In 1971, National Airlines released this advertisement. It pictured a real flight attendant and a new slogan, "Fly Me."
All over Florida, fly me.
Within months, the campaign included Joe, Denise, and Laura.
The airlines basically tried to sell the stewardesses as sex objects.
I'm Diane, fly me. I'm Terry, fly me. I'm Marisa, fly me.
And it worked. After the Fly Me campaign, National saw a 19% jump in ticket sales. Soon, other airlines followed. This was one of the many ways that the airline industry degraded flight attendants and discriminated against them for decades, until flight attendants got together and pushed back.